Okay, Parshas Korach. And we are continuing and developing our theme, which we did a pretty thorough review of in the beginning of last week's shir. So we're not reviewing it today. We are starting from where we left off, because we have a lot of material here, and generally the review takes half the class. So we are starting from the point of what happens when you detach too soon from your connection to Hashem. Now, what we talked about last week was that rejecting the man came from a sense of impatience to kind of get to the stage of being a separate individual. Remember that? The man was compared to nursing. And yes, every child wants to eventually stop nursing and eat on their own, and they start saying no, and they start doing everything themselves. You know, kids feeding themselves, no matter how messy. It's good, it's healthy. But as we've been learning, that nursing stage is also crucial, and what we have a tendency as people to do is feel so much, certainly in the gullus more than ever, so much our individuality and autonomy. We don't have patience for developing emunah and a sense of attachment. We're just so thrilled and excited about our separation and our separateness. The problem is if you detach too soon, you find yourself all alone without that security that you should be innate, should be like hardwired into us, that emunah, and then you become afraid. Two things happen, and what we talked about, one of those things last week, the next thing this week. The first thing that happens is they go into Eretz Yisrael, like they look at the next stage of life, which is going to require a combination of attachment and detachment, or emunah and ishtadlus. Trust in Hashem, that's Eretz Yisrael. You can't live in Israel without total emunah, because you don't even get rain. You have 300 million Arabs trying to kill you every day, destroy you. I mean, you have to live with emunah. At the same time, it's the arena for individuality, creativity, and boy, is Israel, even non-religious Israel, so creative today. There's so much that comes from us that we contribute in participation with Hashem in making this world a better place, so to speak. So what happens is, first of all, with the Meraglim, you become afraid. You detach too soon, you live in a world of fear. And the first thing is, everything is a threat to your existence, to your survival, just to managing in this world. That's there's a zillion nuances and depth. There's so much depth to the story of the Meraglim and Lashon Hara and all that. But a bottom line is fear. Bottom line is Lashon Hara, distortion, all that, self-depression, self-pity, crying. It's all coming from fear. Can I have one of those? Thanks. Thank you. So it's all coming from fear. But there's something, and then they all dissolve into this terrible self-pity that we can't make it, we're not up to it. And we ask the question, how could they possibly collapse in such a sense of helplessness? I mean, what do you mean they're afraid of giants? Hashem just wiped out the entire Egyptian army. All the Nisim, why? Where's this fear coming from? And it's coming from themselves, or they rejected the man. The next thing that happens is inevitable once we detach. And we do not experience our kind of our merging with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and understanding that our role is to be an individual. But the question is what to do with that individuality. What do you do with that individuality? And here's the whole story of Korach is about the tug of war that inevitably takes place when we are very much a self, an other, a separate person, very much feel our individuality, and we begin to lose ourselves in it. And that's why when you look at, the first two words of this week's parsha, Vayikach Korach, look at Rashi, Lakach es atzmo. Oh, where's the Hebrew? He took himself on one side with the view of separating himself from the community so that he might raise a protest regarding the priesthood of which Moshe had appointed his brother. Okay, so we know about Korach. Korach separated himself. He was not going to accept this, what he saw as Moshe's hoarding of power. In other words, of course Hashem told Moshe to choose Aaron to be Kohen Gadol. No question. But Korach, his argument was, and you can look in the Rashi, Moshe was meant to present a candidate who would be worthy of being a Kohen Gadol to Hashem. And there were other worthy candidates, such as Korach, who was a very big Talmid Chacham, a very influential person, and also was kind of next in line in the family to be selected. However, Moshe went ahead and chose his brother. Now, Aaron was certainly a worthy candidate, and Hashem was fine with the choice, but Korach is arguing, why did you choose Aaron? I'm also worthy, and Hashem would have been fine with me too. In other words, you passed over me. This is nepotism. You and your brother want to hoard power. It's not that Hashem didn't tell you to choose a Kohen Gadol, and He didn't tell you to choose a worthy one. And it's just that now you personally pulled Aaron into that position when you could have given a little bit to someone else, such as me. Okay, now, Korach starts a protest movement. Okay? The reason he starts a protest movement, we know, we understand, Rashi's telling us, despite all the very altruistic and idealistic arguments which he's about to present, which sound so sincere and liberal and democratic and for the good of the people and spiritual, the bottom line here is this is a protest argument against power, against Moshe and the solidification of power within one certain family. In other words, he is going to make all kinds of very sincere arguments that sound very sincere. Okay? And he's even coming to protest the hoarding of power by individuals. And that's very much in line with Judaism. That's exactly how Judaism started. Avraham left Kuwait, or Kasdim, which was at that point the center of civilization. Okay? We have dug up Kuwait. It's Ur on the Chaldees. It's what it's called. Ur on the Chaldees in that part of the world. And we found their Zugarits, which just look like pyramids in a different way. Right? And that center of civilization was one. Okay? Which was common to the ancient world, which was that one leader, okay, remember 50 years before this, okay, well let's go back a little bit. Let's go back about it. Avraham was born, okay, in the year 1948, from creation. 50 years later, when he was 50, okay, he was living in the center of the world's greatest civilization. And the great demagogue, the great dictator was Nimrod. And Nimrod, okay, built the Migdal Bavel. All right? This is when Avraham was still 50. And Avraham protests. He does it when Nimrod wanted him to join in the project, and Avraham protests. What is the project? What is it? So we said they dug up the Zugarits.
The Leaning Tower?
No, not the Leaning Tower. That's the palaces of Babylon, the ancient Babylonian palaces. But we're talking about the Zugarits were yes.
The cigarettes? Yeah.
They were the form, and by the way, modeled later was the Egyptian pyramids. But Avram was living in the center of civilization. Now, what happens? When he was 50, was Migdal Bavel. We read the story of Migdal Bavel, and I credit this observation to Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. If you're just anywhere taking a walk or whatever, just go on YouTube and listen to anything, okay, that he ever said. You will always gain something intelligent, interesting, insightful from what he says. He is a font of brilliance, and his delivery, of course, is so mellifluous. And that accent, so that's it. Anyway, so he observes that when we learn about Migdal Bavel, okay, we see how they all spoke one language, and Nimrod was their supreme leader, and they were all unified, except none of them mattered. Remember that? If they would drop a brick, everyone would mourn, but if a person would die, nobody would mourn. What is going on? He observes that is not a praise that everyone spoke one language. That's a terrible thing. That is one person, okay, stamping out individuality, freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of everything, making each person a cog in a wheel to ultimately, like a pyramid, like a ziggurat, support one teeny person at the peak. One person standing at the peak. Remember Yertle the turtle from Dr. Seuss? One person at the peak. This was the opposite of the empowerment of people. Avraham begins as a protest movement, leaving all that behind to go to a backwater called Canaan, where nothing is developed, okay? And there speak about B'Tselem Elokim, that every single person should be free and empowered to express themselves and take a position, a partnership in running this whole universe with Hashem. Okay? And that we are partners, and Hashem wants us to feel full of the pride and the self-esteem and the empowerment and the creativity and the initiative that comes with being God's partner, God-like. And Avram started teaching that by here, make a bracha. You know, Hashem, this food was designed with its taste and its texture and its color and its everything. It's nutritional for you to enjoy yourself while you're also, you know, invigorating yourself so that you can do your job. This is a world of love and freedom. Now, the Jewish people leave Mitzrayim. Again, same story. Dictatorship. No freedoms. No rights for the masses. Everybody serving one person. And we break out of Egypt. It's also, again, a protest movement, and we go to a desert. So when Korach comes to protest the hoarding of power by one or two people, that's Jewish. Okay? And he says, we don't need you. Now, he gives a very, very compelling argument. And what we're looking for is the core of it. What is going on here? And the ideas that we're going to work with today, I had the incredible zechus of hearing directly in Warsaw, Poland, from Rav Moshe Shapiro on those summer trips that we would go on just about now. We would go to different European cities. We went many times, me and my husband and I, and we spent 5 days, you know, in whatever city, and he would speak about the great people from that city. He would give a bunch of, about 8 shiurim, and besides that, we touring Warsaw. But other than, you know, Warsaw, but the people that were there, the Torah that came from there. But so, and I think looking back, I just have to say, I have such tremendous, unbelievable Karas Tov that my husband, you know, became connected to Rav Moshe and through his Torah. And, you know, in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Moshe used to give shiurim that were basically closed. You know, he gave many shiurim. They were in yeshivas and they were to different groups. And then he gave one very big one on Thursday nights with hundreds, 700-800 people came. But it was mostly for men. I think that, you know, women started coming eventually. It was the only opportunity that I think that there were women could sit in the same room, like smaller than this room, and hear shiurim directly from Rav Moshe was on these trips. And there were maybe 10 women on these trips, 10, 12, 14, you know, mostly the husbands came without their wives. More women started to come, you know, with time, but I think I'm probably one of the very, 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 very few people, women, that were able to, you know, learn directly in such a small setting from Rav Moshe. You know, not because women were banned, just because it wasn't something that they went to. You know, it was Baruch Hashem. You know, his shiurim were on a very high level, and I didn't understand a lot of what he said. Obviously, my husband explained it to me. You know, because it took tremendous Talmidei Chachamim not to understand, to appreciate every word and every sentence had so much content to it. You had to have a lot of background, but still, you know, we got a lot. I got a lot, Baruch Hashem. And this shiur that I'm going to speak about today is what he spoke about Parshas Korach in Warsaw. Okay, so the idea is that his argument was the following. Korach's argument was the following. Came to Moshe, again, a protest movement. He said, look, you are the person that gives Torah. You represent Torah. Aaron is the Kohen. He's the Kohen. Now, I have a question for you, Moshe. Okay? He says, you could look at we brought down the Rashi. Okay? He says, there's other stuff in the Rashi, but we'll get to the page 2, which is the bold part. He says, I have a question, Moshe. If a entire beged is tcheles, does it need tzitzis? One blue string? So Moshe said, yes. So he began to mock him. That's ridiculous. Now, what is this? We're talking about tcheles on a beged. So first of all, as soon as you start talking about begodim and clothing, who are you talking about, Moshe or Aaron? Aaron, because of what? Correct. So first he attacks Aaron. Then he says, and let me ask you a question. If a whole room is filled with Sfarim and Torahs, does it need a mezuzah, which has 4 parshas of the Torah on it? So Moshe says, yeah. So he starts mocking him. Who's that a reference to? That's Moshe. So he's attacking Aaron and Moshe, saying, we don't need you. Now, why don't we need you? This is not a pyramid. Torah was given to everybody. We all stood at Har Sinai. Everybody heard Anochi Hashem. Everybody is inspired to do avoda, to connect to Hashem. We don't need Moshe and Aaron as figureheads and leaders to kind of help us do that. We can all do this ourselves. His protest was, on the surface, against the hierarchy and the lack of granting every person the dignity, the courtesy of recognizing them as equally capable of achieving what Moshe does. What is Moshe supposed to do for us? What's Aaron supposed to do for us? Moshe is supposed to do what? Teach us. In other words, bring the heavens down to us, all the Torah. But Hashem did that for us. We don't need Moshe to do that. And second of all, what's Aaron supposed to do? Bring us up to do the avoda, demonstrate our reaching out to Hashem. We have that in us. So he says, why have you hoarded all this power and taken this position as our role models, as our, as our leaders? Kol ha'am, the whole nation is holy like you. We all been there, done that. We're all equal. This is very democratic. Yeah.
Was Korach complaining because he wasn't the next? He was the next.
At the core,
the next in line, but he wasn't.
Yeah, at the core of his argument, we'll see, it was all about his kavod. But his argument was.
But why wasn't he chosen?
Because Hashem told Moshe to choose Aaron. That was the whole point. It was specifically Aaron. It was al pi Hashem. So now what happens is this is his argument. Okay, it is Jewish. It's a protest movement against the abuse of power, about lack of empowerment of the people, denial of everybody's tzelem Elokim, everybody's capacity, denial of the fact that we all stood at Har Sinai together, and he was representing the people. Okay, and this again, he got a lot of followers. He got 250 very, very chashuv people to follow him, plus a couple of tagger honors, Das and Vaviran, who just needed to pick a fight with Moshe in general.
And Reuben.
But Reuben was his neighbor, and among the Reubenites, there were very great leaders that joined in, that were very altruistic, very sincere. They got bought into this argument, which is we don't need Moshe and Aharon. Now we're going to digress, and this is here how Rav Moshe would teach, bring in unbelievable, profound ideas that and pull them all together. So he started speaking about the idea that a person, the person's greatest yearning is what Korach was expressing: empowerment, kavod. I am self-respect. I am also, like we've been speaking about, a partner with God. I'm also, my contribution needs to be recognized. No, why should one person's superior contribution or role be, enshrined. What about the kavod of every person? And the kavod of every person is the thing most dear to us. So Moshe always used to say this, and look on page 3. Keep this with you. We come back to this a lot. He would always quote the Baal HaMa'or, who lived in the 1100s. Okay. He would all in his Hakdama to one of his Sfarim called the Ma'or HaKatan. The Baal HaMa'or says that the nefesh of a person, the nefesh chaya of a person, is often called kavod. Now, when we say the nefesh chaya of a person, okay? The nefesh chaya of a person, remember the pasuk which is going to be on the next page? It says in Perek Beis, which you flip to, pasuk Zayin in Bereshis, the following: Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es ha'adam afar min hadam. Hashem formed man with two main components. One, material, afar min hadam, organic matter, physical. Vayipach ba'apo nishmas chaim, but he invested in us a neshama, spiritual. Vayhi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, and man became a nefesh chaya. The nefesh chaya is the combination of the neshama and the guf. That's the nefesh chaya. The human, the physical person with their neshama, that is called a nefesh chaya. And he says that is called kavod. It is essentially a kavod seeker, kavod giver. It is formed by kavod. It is designed for kavod. So look what he says. He brings 3 quotes from Tehillim. Ura kavodi, awake my soul. It's called kavod. Okay? Lachein samach libi vayagel kavodi ach besari yishkol nebetach. Now all 3 are in there. My heart rejoices. Okay? My kavod, my neshama, and my body. Okay? Next, Laman yizamercha kavod v'lo yidom, so that my whole being, really my soul here, my whole being, it's really the combination. My whole being, which is my neshama and my guf, which is my nefesh chaya, my whole being is to sing kavod to you. Okay? Laman yizamercha kavod, my whole being is to sing to you. Okay? My whole being, my soul and my body will rejoice. My whole being will awaken. So the neshama and the guf, the nefesh chai of a person is their kavod. Okay? And now we're adding another piece to this. Rav Moshe used to say this a lot too. What is the nefesh of a person? We just associated it directly with kavod. But now he has another piece to this, a 3-part equation. Okay? When Avraham is speaking to Bnei Chet to buy the piece of land to bury Sarah, he says the following: V'yidaber itam lemor, im yesh es nafshechem likbar es mesi. If it's your, what does it mean? If yesh es nafshechem, what kind of funny language? If yesh, there is es nafshechem, your soul, your spirit, to bury my dead. So what does Rashi say? Rashi, nafshechem, ritzonchem. It's your ratzon. So now we got 3 parts of this equation. Ratzon is your nefesh, which is your kavod. Okay? The word nafshechem means your ratzon. Is it your nefesh? Your nefesh is your ratzon. You are, a human being is ratzon. And the word oretz, that we live on, the shorish is rutz. We're running to something. We're yearning, we're pursuing, we're striving. If you see a person who's not striving, not pursuing, not chasing, that's a pathology. That's a pathology, right? They're passive, they're hopeless, they're depressed. It's a pathology. So the human being is desire, yearning, striving, ratzon. That is the nefesh of a person. And what the nefesh of a person is most striving for above all things is what they are, which is kavod. He says the ultimate desire of a soul is kavod, self-respect. Without it, we prefer not to live. I've heard Rav Moshe say many times that when a person begins to actually believe that they are worthless, they have no self-respect, they don't have a ratzon, they don't feel that they need to achieve anything because they have no worth at all, that person either gives up on life completely, or the brain kicks in with survival methods, to protect the person from such a thought, and invents delusions of grandeur. I am Napoleon, I am Yashka, I am Mashiach. You see a lot of them in Yerushalayim. So, by the code, okay. The ultimate, what we're getting into here is that the essence of a person is for Kavod, which is what Korach is representing as a protest. You're not allowing for that. You're hoarding the Kavod, okay? But really, his argument is the opposite. It's the opposite. It ultimately leads to, like Migdal Bavel, like communism, to the denial of Kavod for every person, which we're going to see. The ultimate tug of war is with our need for Kavod, our yearning for Kavod. The question is, what do we do with it? How is it meant to be expressed? Okay, we are Kavod. Now, we wrote here, Kavod is expressed. Okay, look on the top. The Baal HaMa'or, okay, in his Hakdama says the following. He says that the Nefesh HaChaya is Kavod, as we just showed. Kavod is our Ratzon. He says, but why is this so? Man derives existence from the Kisei HaKavod. Now don't think about that literally, but Chazal always say that man was created from beneath the Kisei HaKavod. There's no actual physical throne up in heaven, okay? What that means is that the throne of Kavod, Hashem's Kavod, is the source of man, the existence of man. We are part of the Kavod. We are an extension of the Kavod. We come from the Kisei HaKavod, the throne of glory. It defines man, is an essence of Kavod. Hashem, who bestows his Kavod upon us, and therefore it is natural to us, it is within us to yearn to be connected to and feel that Kavod. It's just normal. Okay, that is how we're designed. We are essence, we are elements of Kavod, of Hashem's Kavod. Our soul feels it, it's our Ratzon. What we're establishing here is that what drives a person, okay? We always say purpose, to have a purpose. Have a purpose is like Viktor Frankl, right? Okay. Why is this thing falling? That's what's annoying.
You want me to shift the other table closer, Esther?
Okay, what?
Want me to shift that closer? Will it be easier?
That's okay.
It's not closing in, but...
Commercial break. Okay. Ready? Okay. So, how is our Kavod meant to be expressed? Okay, here's the tug of war. Here's what happens. We already been talking about Kavod for a few weeks. Our Kavod is meant to be expressed. What we're really yearning for is the ultimate Kavod, which is we want to be like God. And the truth is we're given the tools to be that, to exactly achieve that. We are co-creators. Remember that? Remember the Nefesh HaChaim, the Sefer Nefesh HaChaim says, the pasuk we just quoted, Vayhi ha'adam le'nefesh chaya. That combination of body and soul, okay, of spiritual and physical, which is the Nefesh Chaya, which is the Kavod, okay? The Nefesh HaChaim taught us, the Sefer Nefesh HaChaim taught us, does not say Vayhi be'adam nefesh chaya, that there's in man a living spirit. It says Vayhi ha'adam le'nefesh chaya. Man became the driving engine, the spirit of the world. Remember that? We partner with Hashem to make this world the place it's meant to be. We are empowered by Hashem. The Kavod we're seeking is real Kavod, partnership with Hashem. But that involves knowing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants and what Hashem's will is, and letting that be what we partner with, and letting that be what we use our own individuality to express. So our Kavod is expressed when we identify ourselves with Hashem and partner with Hashem, emulating Hashem as a way of expanding His influence in His world, His Kavod in this world through us. When we emulate Hashem, we are doing the greatest thing that we could do out of awareness and appreciation of our role with Hashem. How do you, if you respect someone immensely, we already spoke about this. We spoke about two aspects of Moshe used to explain. When you honor someone and revere someone immensely because they think they're so great, they're greater than you. Look, what is a human being? Okay, let's go back one step. Viktor Frankl, a man's search for meaning, purpose. That's what I was about to say, right. Purpose. When we say we're seeking a purpose, what that means is kavod. We are looking for something worth investing our energy in, devoting ourselves to. Pushing ourselves for, sacrificing for, working for, something that's worthy of our reverence, that won't disappoint us, that won't in the end be found to be just as empty as everything else. Something real that's worth us not just admiring, but striving to contribute to. Okay. When we find a person, let's say, that's worth our reverence, the first thing we want to do is we want to contribute. What can I do for you? Ahava. What do you need? A ride to the airport? Can I shop? Can I do something? Tanya, where are you? No one goes to Costco for me anymore. But no, it's somebody that you want to be close with. But talking about reverence, I'm not talking about, that I should be revered, chas shalom. But the thing is that when you really have someone that you respect immensely, the first thing is you want to do something. Now, the second thing is, if you really respect that person and you want to be worthy to be in their presence, is you do not want to say or do anything that might offend them or be beneath their level. And I saw, you should know, for Moshe, I saw great people, like Rabbi Akiva Tatz, the different Rosh Hashivas, Rav Moshe Weinberger from this community, all kinds of great people that would come on these trips. They were scared to speak to Rav Moshe in a way that could possibly be less than worthy of his kavod. My husband used to say it this way. He would say, just be careful because he could turn you into a frog. So people, and even my husband was a Yisham Chacham, you didn't just say anything. You just were very careful what you say. You didn't even want to waste his time answering a question that he answered already, and it's somewhere you could have found it. So there's a tremendous amount of reverence to a person who you see as worth, wanting that you want to be connected to. But the greatest thing you can do after the love and trying to help and give, and after the reverence and the caution and the yira, meaning awe, the greatest thing you could do is to start emulating that person and expanding that person's reach in the world so that what they did for you or what you gained can be appreciated by everyone else and everyone can benefit. Emulation is ultimately the greatest form of kavod, right? Now, when we emulate Hashem, that is the ultimate way we expand, so to speak, Hashem's reach in His own world, being known, being discovered, being appreciated. It comes from emulation of Hashem. Now, Rav Moshe said in Parshas Korach a few years ago, he said that the Arizal explained that the word nigle, which generally we talk about Hashem is nigle. There's a part of of Torah that's nigle, that's revealed. Okay, that's revealed, and that's the discoverable, more open parts, so to speak. And then there's Nister. Nister is all the Kabbalah and all the hidden stuff. The Arizal used to say that there are 4 parts to the nigle, to the discoverable aspects of the kavod of Hashem, of Hashem's revelation, and they are neshama, nigle, nun, gimel, lamed, hey, neshama, guf, that's the nefesh chaya, that's the kavod, right? The one, that part of us that yearns for kavod, essentially, you can't take that away from a person, right? And then lavush and heichal, your clothing and your house. Getting close to Korach's argument here, clothing and the house. Nigle is your neshama and your guf, nefesh chaya, I put the pasuk right here, okay? And then the lavush and the heichal. Clothing and the home belong to the category of expressing the kavod of a person. The essence of a person, the nefesh chaya, the body, soul, that is the kavod. That is the kavod seeker. That is searching, what do I do with this desire to give kavod? And it could easily be subverted. And how is it generally subverted first? What do I do with my desire to be appreciated as someone worthy of kavod and give kavod and be an essence of self-respect and importance and status, which ultimately we get by partnering with Hashem? If it's subverted, where does it all go? It's all about me. Kavod, I want to give kavod to myself, and causing myself to be recognized as the supreme one who has the best, the highest status, because I am the smartest, the richest, the most religious, the biggest balas chesed, the biggest talmid chacham, the most irreverent, the one who the biggest, truth seeker, the humblest. Yes, of course. As my father-in-law used to say, Zichrono Livracha, he would say, for a while I started to work on myself and improve myself and try to be more humble. He says, I didn't enjoy it. Now I work on other people. They should be more humble. But the idea here is that kavod, we need to know, this is a tug of war. What do you do with kavod? So the first thing is we're in essence of kavod. That's your nefesh chaya. But then the guf and the lavush, okay? Then that means that your body, the lavush and the heichal, your clothing and your home. That is the area of how a person expresses their kavod. So, what is Korach's argument? He's saying that tcheles on tzitzis, okay? What do you need tcheles on tzitzis if the whole garment is tcheles? What's he saying? Let's break it down. What are garments? Okay, garments are a form of expressing the kavod of a person. People dress very much in a way to give us message of, where they are, what they stand for, and the string of now the beged of a person. Okay, and think about Aaron also. Avoda is it's covering their body. It's on the one hand concealing their nefesh chaya, their neshama and their guf are both concealed. Your body's concealed with clothing, and your neshama is hidden in your body. Okay, so you have this yearning for kavod, and your clothing, in a sense, contain that. Now, just so that it should not be limited, a person should not limit their yearning for kavod, should not be suppressed, should not see themselves as having ultimately, having no expression to their yearning for kavod. You put a string of techeles. You know what Rashi says. It reminds you of the ocean, which reminds you of the sky, which reminds you of the kisei hakavod, which you're part of. Okay? And in a sense, it's extending a person. The tzitzis hang free. They're loose, right? In other words, there is this extension into the beyond, into the turquoise, into the sky, into the kisei hakavod, into the great blue beyond, into that place of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's meant to say you're not limited. At the very corner of your cornered garment, which is very circumscribed and holds everything inside, no. Now you branch out. You sprout forward. Tzitzis is like tzitz, like a sprout. You go beyond, to the great blue beyond, to the kisei hakavod where you come from. And that was what Aaron was doing. With the avoda in the Beis HaMikdash and his big day kahuna, which represents his position, he's allowing people to go beyond themselves into another realm, into the realm of into God's realm. So our clothing, okay, which has the tcheles on it, this is, on the one hand, it's meant to be a external expression of our kavod, and our kavod being, the tzitzis on the clothing, the tcheles, the unlimited aspect of man. Okay? Now, notice, beged, beis gimel dalid, right? And then the word is boged, traitor. what can a beged be used for? It could be subvert the entire concept of kavod, and it's about drawing all attention and consolidating all power through my big day, through my clothing, through my royal garb, through my costume. So I am the source of all kavod. I am not only source, I'm the address for all kavod. All kavod comes this way to me. Okay, that's what he's saying. Aaron's doing. Okay, now mezuzah on your house. All right, what is that? Our home is our private limited space. Okay, it's called the Rishus Hayachid. Beyond that, out there, it's called the Rishus Harabim, the public domain. Right? We go between the public domain and the private domain. All right? The public domain, we're just one of a million. The private domain, we are significant. Okay? We put a mezuzah at the boundary between the public domain and the private domain. What is that about? Ramban tells us that we coming as individuals or as part of the klal, we never forget Hashem's presence among us, and essentially what we're doing is we're putting that place of demarcation, we're kind of erasing the boundaries. We're saying out there and in here together as part of a tzibur and as an individual, we are all united in this human pursuit of having kavod, being a source of kavod, contributing to the kavod. Okay? And you shouldn't forget that when you blend with the masses, you forget that and you become again just one of the masses. Again, insignificant. Again, not someone who in and of themselves expands, can see their individuality. He compares Shabbos to the mezuzah, blending the two realms of the Rishus Harabim and Rishus Hayachid. How do we blend those realms on Shabbos? An Eruv. Right?
Why is it that not everyone accepts an Eruv?
Wait, hold on, that's technical. There are 39 malachas on Shabbos, and one more, 38 of one category, and then the mitzvah of the Eruv and the Isser of carrying if there's no Eruv. Listen to this is Rav Hirsch. The 38 malachas break down into three categories: pursuit of food, clothing, and shelter. We cease and desist. We're not busy with it on Shabbos. We prepare it all before Shabbos. Because we prepared it all before Shabbos, what does that mean? On Shabbos, we exist in a state where our human effort, all our hard work to sustain our survival doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's not required or necessary. We exist on Shabbos. We get a sense because we're part of Hashem's existence, not because we're struggling to provide for ourselves and secure our own existence. We're existing because we're part of Hashem's existence. That's Shabbos, right? And then there's one more in the 39, and that's the Eruv. Carrying, you have to make a specific demarcation. You have to say, I'm combining Rishus Harabim with Rishus Hayachid, and now I could go between them. I'm uniting the two. It's like a mezuzah, okay? And what that means is I am part of everything, and I play a role. We talked about this a lot, participating in Hashem's existence, and yet playing my individual role. So he brings down here, notice, in the Berachas Krishma, the brachas, after Yishtabach, on Shabbos we say, Ma Gadlu Ma'asecha Hashem, how gadol. During the week we say, Ma Rabu, how many. The difference between Rav and Gadol, Rav is like the weekday, it's Rishus Harabim. There's a lot of people, a lot of different people, and I'm one of them. There's a lot of things going on here, and I'm one of them. On Shabbos, Gadol means we combine all the many, many parts into one whole. That's Moshe. Moshe is unifying through the Torah, Am Yisrael, into a whole. Achdus. Remember how we got the Torah? Ish echad b'lev echad. Moshe identified entirely with Am Yisrael, which we're going to see in next week's parsha. So now, on Shabbos we perceive Gadol, the unification of all the many parts into a single whole. The private domain, the public domain are united. The physical life is not separate from the spiritual life. We're living because we're part of Hashem's existence. Now look what happens on Shabbos. These are the mitzvahs. We learned this a few months ago about Kavod Shabbos, about clothing and your home, preparing it for Shabbos. Our souls, our bodies, Oneg Shabbos, right? Our clothing and our home all reflect the Kavod Shabbos. That it's all part of an expression of this Kavod that we are created to be part of. Now, Aaron is like the tchelas of an entirely blue garment. Here we get to Korach's his mistake. And by the way, Tzaddik Katamar Yifrach, the Arizal says, Rosh Hashanah, the end is Korach. There was something very great in what he's saying. The Jews do believe in the empowerment of all people, but he's missing one point. Okay? Aaron is like Tchelis on an entirely blue garment. Okay, clearly he represents garments, Big Day Kahuna, and his role as a Kohen. He connects us to the infinite, right? Moshe is like the mezuzah in a room full of Torah. His role is to unite Am Yisrael, each one full of Torah with each other, okay, as a whole. You know this famous little song we all sing, this nice, cute little piece in Pirkei Avos, Im ein ani li mili. That's what's going on, and that's the mistake here in Korach's argument. He only read the first, he only identified with the first part. It is true, Im ein ani li mili. The ani of a person, we have to know ourselves, experience our endless potential to expand ourselves, to play a bigger and bigger role in emulating Hashem, meaning wiser, smarter, more understanding, and more skilled, and more talents, and more abilities, and more self-expansion, like Hashem. There's no limit. And if I can, and no one's going to do it for me. It has to be something I do. Recognizing that Hashem is counting on me to be as developed, as expansive as I possibly can be, so that I can emulate Hashem and bring that covenant into the world. And that's really where I get my own self-esteem. There's no greater goal to devote ourselves to than God Himself and God's governance of the world with us, that needs us. Now, Emein ani li mili is true, and that's what Korach was arguing. We are all sources. We all have it in us. We all stood at Har Sinai. We all understand that we're meant to go beyond ourselves. That's the blue. Our whole selves are blue. We're all full of that. Okay? And also that there is, and that the whole room, in other words, our whole inner realm is entirely connected to truth. There's no outer realm, so to speak. You don't need the mezuzah. You don't need a mezuzah to differentiate. The whole room is full of Torah. You need a mezuzah with a little Torah on it to connect you to the outside. He's forgetting the part, and this is why we do need Moshe and Aharon. Kashani la'atzmi ma'ani. The thing is that it is true, but the more we connect to this kavod, the more we realize we need the figures of Moshe and Aharon, meaning leaders, to help us and guide us in this endeavor. Why? Why do we need leaders? Because the yearning for kavod requires very, very careful expression and monitoring. It can be easily subverted, and we can use it entirely to honor our own limited, flawed, desperate selves, right? Both our clothing and our homes and all our everything could be subverted. The subversion will be expressed via clothing in our homes. In other words, what is Moshe and Aharon? Moshe is anav mikol adam. It is not about him. Aharon is a ohev shalom, rodev shalom. It's not about him. Yes, it is easy to subvert this enormous power that we hold within us and our yearning for kavod, and that's why we need direction from people who know how to do it correctly, who know how to do it right, who know how to be full of Torah, but not let that cause them to be superior, but rather take that Torah and unify and share and teach and give over and empower others. And also in terms of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the Kohen Gadol, doing what we should do with our yearnings, with our desire for a sense of greater connection and greater role here, greater purpose. people don't know what to do with it, and it gets subverted into all kinds of ways that are outside the Mikdash. Like Koheles. The first few chapters of Koheles is all about, we learn about Rivka Fuchs' house every Wednesday morning. The first few chapters, Shlomo Melech is telling us what people do in a desperate attempt to establish some individuality and kavod for themselves. They start accumulating everything and pursuing everything and acquiring everything and making names for themselves. It's all in the end frustration and disappointment and unfulfilling. Right? And Aaron shows what to do with the yearning, where to direct it. Yeah, you do need people who got it right. That doesn't mean that takes away from our individuality and our power. But it just means there's supposed to be a guideline. Now, I would say, before we end, in the truth, this whole sincere controversy was a sham. It was an invented argument, which Rashi tells us right away, and where he's really looking for that very same kavod for himself. He's actually seeking not the betterment of the people, but he's seeking his own role as the spokesman for the people. This experiment was tried where the leadership was there for the empowerment of the people. And what ended up happening in communism, for example, the people were completely enslaved, and the powerful people had all the power in the world. It's happening in Gaza. It's happening in every dictatorship. Now, the thing is like this. The thing is that Korach's argument, as we said, had a lot of truth to it. It was very noble. There was a lot to connect to in the argument. What happens is we do need leaders, which is what he's denying. The problem is that if the leader doesn't get it right, it becomes the disillusionment, is terrible, and it becomes two things happen. People can say it's not doable. It's not doable to a person to be able to correctly manage their desire for kavod. It's just not doable. Even the people that we thought were doing it aren't doing it. They can't do it. It all comes back to themselves in the end, and what that pleases them, and they take advantage of other people, and they misuse their power, and therefore, you know what? The whole enterprise is not. You can't accomplish it. Nobody can accomplish it. Clearly, if the leaders can't accomplish it, it's not doable. It's a great idea, but it's really not sustained. It's not managed. It can't be done. That's disillusion number one, but that's not true. It can be done. The problem is we need role models, people who can do it and who have done it. They're critical. They're the only way we really push ourselves is when we have a role model who we can inspire. Now, sometimes it comes down to a generation. You could argue this is our generation today, where it's got to, if there's very few people who can, who succeed in it, it becomes obvious that every single individual has to make themselves into that person that succeeds in it. It's still out there, and it's as a reality. It can be done. But we say bimkom she'en ish. If you realize there's no one, you got to be the person. You got to be that person. And I do think that in my personal opinion, that a lot of the chutzpah and the irreverence we see today in the youth and in the world in general, and we view it as a horrible thing. It is a horrible thing, but what is it? It's disillusionment. People get very angry when they are disillusioned. And everybody is still seeking, everybody's seeking something real that's worth devoting, trusting in, devoting ourselves to, giving kavod to. We never give up that yearning, but it gets very frustrating and we get very angry when we don't find it. Now, there are very, very great people in the world today, okay? But they're people that, you have to know what greatness is to begin to notice them, okay? So what is greatness? I remember Rav Noach Weinberg, Zachron Levracha, used to say, a couple of guys came to me, Eish HaTorah, he founded Eish HaTorah. A couple of guys said, Rabbi, I don't know what to tell you. We've been in this country a couple of months. We've been traveling around. We didn't see any holiness. So he said, interesting. Did you see any before sticks? What? They said, who? They said, what's a mafustik? He said, I didn't ask you if you know what it is. I asked if you saw it. So, what is Kedusha? What is greatness? What is Moshe and Aharon? Okay? What is this? These are people, okay, that they see they are inclusive. They share with everyone whatever they can to empower and strengthen and build up and encourage and understand people. They inspire people to try harder, to not give up, to see that they are, then it's not, that there's something, that their kohot are necessary, respected, appreciated, that they have what to offer and they have what to give. And they are respect worthy as any great person. They are also Tzelem Elokim. These are the great people. These are the Moshe and Aharons, both very humble, both loving each other, loving Am Yisrael, bringing Am Yisrael to a higher place and bringing that higher place down to Am Yisrael, making that message clear to every single person. Those are the people. Those are Im ein ani li mili, but kishani la'atzmi. But if I'm all by myself, Mani, I don't amount to anything. I need other people to pull me, and we have to be those other people. And we can't lose faith if we get disappointed in some people. But the objective is to convey the message, and you do need someone in your life. There's a lot of movies about this too. Some dejected, rejected, hopeless person on the streets, and then somebody found them and had faith in them. You know those stories? And they achieved great things. Yeah, you need one person. Somebody who's the Moshe, the Aharon, who raises you up, who gives you the vision, who believes in you. You do need another person. No, Korach's wrong. Not everybody could do it by themselves. You do need leaders. You need somebody out there to respect and to trust. And this is what Korach was all right, except all wrong. Because if you reject the fact that you need someone else, then you're not connecting to anything beyond yourself, and you're going to fail. And it's all a lie. If you can't connect to one person beyond yourself to inspire you, you have it all, then you don't even get started in becoming a real source of kavod and a vehicle of kavod.
Why didn't Korach accept the fact that Hashem wanted
So this is what Korach did not want to accept. Korach was so good. The real truth is, Korach was so great. He was among those that, we gave a lot of shirim on this in the past. He was among those that carried the Aron. Leia's asking a fundamental question. I refer you back to a couple of previous shirim, but this is important, so I'll just jump into it. You have to understand, this is critical. Yeah, we have to understand the role of Korach, the role of the Levium. Remember this. The Kohen got Big Day Kahuna. They went into the Beis HaMikdash. They did the Avoda. Yes, they were community servants, but it had some status attached to it. The Levium, of which Korach was the greatest, they didn't have the status. They had minimal Big Day Kahuna, much less. And you know what their job was? Schlepping. They broke down the Mishkan, they carried it on their back, and they set it up. Korach was a schlepper, and he was the biggest Talmid Chacham, the most wealthiest, and you know what he schlepped? The Aron. He was Nosei HaAron. And you're so close to the greatness, but you don't get the recognition like Moshe and Aharon. In other words, you know what this is? It is the challenge of Korach is that Korach was required to be a bearer of the kavod, but get lost in it. In other words, totally l'shem shamayim. Where was Korach? He was just so entirely a bearer of Hashem's kavod, without any kavod for himself personally. And sometimes the requiring of a person, total l'shem shamayim, total lishma, that could be a tremendous challenge. So Moshe, by the way, Moshe got a little mussar here in this week's parsha. He said to Korach, it's not enough that you're a Levi, that it's selected to do the avodah of Hashem, to carry the Aron. It's not enough for you? That's how much more of a position of kavod could you want? And he said to Korach the famous words, Rav Lacha. It's enough. You're Ben Levi. You do everything. You have so much kavod. So you know what Hashem said to Moshe when he wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael at the end of his life, and Hashem said no, and Moshe said, but 40 years I gave myself entirely to this nation. Let me just get a little satisfaction from coming into Eretz Yisrael with them, from seeing them settled, a little bit of personal gratification from my mission. And you know what Hashem said to Moshe? Rav Lacha. It's not enough. Which means it is very hard to deny, which is the ultimate role, deny some degree of recognition and get lost entirely in the Kavod Shamayim that we're here to represent. And that's what triggered him. Too much for him, too much L'Shem Shamayim. He needed a little personal Kavod. And this is where he then started arguing, it's not about me, it's that everybody, you're denying everyone kavod. And we're saying it's true. We are never, ever supposed to deny every person kavod. In fact, we believe that in the capacity of a human being to be a source of kavod, the playing field is even. In fact, the halacha is if there's a Kohen Gadol who's a Amma Aretz, it's all theoretical, drowning, and next to him there is a Mamzer who's a Talmud Chacham, you save the mamzer first because the playing field is even. It's all about each person being a vehicle for kavod. And that's why Korach's right. But at the same time, we do need to have someone to look up to be a role model, to have a position in Klal Yisrael as a true role model. And by the way, there's a whole nother degree, but that's what the kings of Israel were supposed to be. And David HaMelech, who whenever he lapsed from being a vehicle for Hashem's kavod to being a vehicle for his own kavod, when he lapsed in that, he was sincere and honest enough to say instantly, Chatasi, I sinned. I subverted. That was the greatness of David.
Pastor, also one of the roles of a really good leader is to give that recognition
That's
to the
right.
person
Correct.
that's feeling
That's correct.
subsumed in his role.
That's
to
correct.
say, "You couldn't do it."
That's why Moshe said when Hashem picked 70 Nevi'im last week and Yoshua came running, 70 Nevi'im, and he goes, Halavai, everybody should be a Navi. I don't have a problem. I am not trying to hoard any special status. The more for everybody, the better. Yeah.
When you say Tzadika Tamar Yifrach, a date palm, that's how it fertilizes. The seeds go from one to the other, and that's tzaddik, and that's what Korach didn't have. That's why he's at the end and not at the beginning.
Very nice, very true.
Is that why the Misnagdim are so against the Rebbe's?
The Misnagdim were against Hasidus for the lack of meticulousness with halacha. But even some of the Hasidim didn't believe in Rebbes, like the whole Polish line of the Kutzker and the Simcha Birnami Peshisch and all that. They didn't believe in that. That whole